aspiration and delusion, powerful agents against the uninitiated. But we are initiated, Mr. Hamilton, aren't we? And you betrayed us with air displacement.
Labs fail every day, not because of bad science, but because no one planned for success. Steve Laflin joins Helical Brew to expose the real chaos behind automation.
Welcome, everybody, to Helical Brew for this next episode in the Science Means Business series that we've been working on. And among our other series that you can check out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/YouTube. But for this episode of Helical Brew, I am pleased to welcome Steve Laflin. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Mike.
Oh, glad to have you. And in this episode, we're going to title "Built to Fail: What Lab Ops Gets Wrong, and of course, how to fix it." Always the important piece there. And Steve, we're really glad to have you with us. And let me do a little quick intro, and then we'll get started. Breaking the ice, as we like to do. So welcome to the Science Means Business, the Helical Brew series spotlighting the leaders who turn complex science into real-world success. Today's guest, Steve Laflin, a visionary operations leader who's been transforming life science environments from the ground up for over 2 decades. Steve has held senior roles at Eli Lilly, Biosero, which is where we met up for the first time. We were working with Biosero. We'll talk more about that. ResMed, and most recently, Genentech, where he served as the principal SHE program manager. He's managed more than $325 million in capital programs, guided major automation turnarounds, and helped shape safety and operational excellence into strategic business assets. From mentoring startups to fixing systems that broke after scale-up, Steve brings real-world lessons from both boardroom and the bench. So, Steve, what's one costly mistake you've seen again and again in the business of running science?
It really comes down to making great buys. And by that, I mean when you're investing in technology, pick the right shiny toy for the right research. And a lot of times we were buying technology was 20, 30 years old in the industry. It was still available in the market, but the pivot is once we started to get to automation and really integration of these things instead of siloed pieces at the bench, it was a difference maker. We took research from sometimes years to months, and sometimes months to weeks, and sometimes weeks to days by connecting and automating all the way through instead of buying individual siloed pieces of equipment. So that was probably the biggest, costliest mistake we were making. We were losing a lot of precious time. And in research, time is everything.
Yeah, it has been a trend I've seen in my time in laboratory automation, going from, like you said, the siloed approach to where you'd have different departments making different decisions, often unaware of what each other's doing. I think that's just the nature of each instrument and each, if you want to say, vertical market. You've got mass spec, biologics, you've got screening, all these things, right? And then, and back in the day, it maybe made some sense to work in a siloed environment, but these days with integration and just everything, you have to bring it all together. So it's cool to see that pharma companies are building teams internally to do that coordination. I literally witnessed that as we were working together at Lilly, right, and bringing that coordination online, and you could see the results of it were significant in a short period of time.
But I mean, if they don't buy old equipment from eBay will just go broke, right?
They do take a cut.
Well, to that point, Lilly at the time, and they stopped that. What do you think if 4,000 researchers had their own procurement cards? How well would that go?
Oh, man.
They did.
Silo in the silo.
Yeah. And that just belies the whole point of, I love innovation and the science behind driving forward. But sometimes, you don't have that expertise in understanding how that equipment fits into what you're trying to do, and scientists wanting to do things on those cards, that's going to be a really big problem really fast.
Bingo. So we would see that too. So I think the procurement card program lasted for about a year before they took them all away. So, but
we'll take that.
Thank you.
And yours too. Hey, I got to keep mine. No, you didn't.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I get that. I think It's something that and again, I've seen more and more where that coordination goes to procurement. It also goes to just selection, right? Vendor selection. If you can do things with 2 vendors, why do it with 10? Just for the heck of it, which is another area.
Yeah, the selection is really a key one because we actually built algorithms at Lilly where we looked at service support and product and technology. And really, on every family of equipment, we got down to the gold standard vendors and who we were going to partner with. And that was really a transformation. Some of these vendors, we had 10, 20, $30 million invested in their technology, but did they bring an A game on service and support? And in many cases, we found out they didn't. So once we standardized on who we used, what we used, and where we used it, and then we looked at the process flows with our automation team, that's kind of where we went from silos to contiguous processing and really tying these things together. And super gratifying because we had research that was going on siloed equipment in the endocrine group, and I'll never forget it. And when we brought in some liquid handling Hamilton equipment and we did some just minor integration with it, they got to candidate selection in a month, which would have taken them years. And it was like, and it wasn't anything fabulous, but it was just small little things like that were difference makers. And instead of hand pipetting, right?
Yeah, the little things make a difference. So let's get going on the business of bad automation. Trust me, viewers and listeners, we're going to go positive. But first, we got to go look at the bad first, right? If you don't know the bad, how are you going to find the good?
You gotta look for the signs.
Got to look for the signs. So, any consistency, or even if there isn't consistency, I mean, some signs you're automating the wrong problem. Yeah.
Yep. So in a lot of our research at the time, what you would see is that the interconnectivity just wasn't there. And so you would watch what they do. You'd walk into a laboratory. They might have a TCAN, liquid handler at the bench. And then it wouldn't connect very well to anything else that was going on within that. So, and then it was like, well, when you started to watch what they did and how they did it, it was like, well, wait a minute. There's got to be a better way. I had all the open access labs within Lilly, and open access labs were where Lilly purchased a lot of extra equipment, but it was the same thing that we already had in all of our siloed laboratories. So it was kind of like, well, if my stuff's broken in my area, then I'll just go to the open access. And we jump shifted. So now the open access lab should be state-of-the-art technology. We should be going to cutting-edge technology. And then if we understand what they're doing, instead of like trying to put this in individual labs, let's build these labs out with high-tech equipment. And at first, when we did that, it was a little bit of a struggle. And the struggle was everybody was scared of it. They didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to make of it. And it was like, I don't know if I'm not sure about this. And so for the first few months, it was like, well, nobody's showing up. And this is really cool. This is really cool stuff. And there was a reason behind it. We really didn't do a very effective job in finding champions, people that would be early adopters. And it was kind of like, as soon as we got one of the people that had street credibility and they tried it, let's just say the water cooler conversations got real interesting and people started showing up.
Street cred in automation.
It's a big deal, right?
Yep.
I mean, what's been your experience, Sura, with that? I mean, without street credibility, people are scared. They just don't want to go up and use something, right?
That's what you see is you can put in tools and automate people's workflows, but if there's no buy-in, the machines just sit there. So really it's about proving what they can do. And for me, being embedded in a biotech, it's more about like showing that the data coming out is equivalent to what they were doing on the bench. Yeah, having those champions in-house that talk about how well things are going, that's super important.
Yeah, and once we got to that, it was like in the mornings, we had a Starbucks waiting line to get into the open access areas, waiting to get to the technology versus them even like considering using their siloed equipment. So it was a bottleneck. So we had a new bottleneck, which was actually a good one, where it was like, well, we need more of that. So we went from siloed to automated, and that automated really worn out into moving the open access labs into a destination versus an afterthought.
Yeah, I think you covered the other items of
Yeah. So it's not decoration anymore, it's enablement.
exactly. And you're getting your user alignment, right, by just participation and using the lab, using the open access. I mean, that's a great way to do it. And then when you find the things you need to scale, you scale. If something needs to grow, if you need, well, this needs its own dedicated system. We've reached that point. Okay, great. And having the facilities is the starting point, right?
Well, and you're right, because at Lilly, when you think about it, there's silos within silos. And by that, I mean, we had a biotech group, we had an endocrine group, we had a neurology group, an oncology group, and none of them really talked to each other. They all had their own separate thing, but many of the pieces of technology they all needed, but they were all either using different stuff or doing things different ways. And once we got to standardization with just Hamilton was our gold standard when it came to liquid handling. We had huge investments in TCAN, and we went from about honestly a $10 million setup with TCAN with all the liquid handling to divesting ourselves of that and flipping over to Hamilton. We even had coders from Hamilton that were full-time on site, and that was the first time Hamilton had ever done that. And so we brought staffing in to help at the bench to get the method set up. And it went from the researchers trying to figure this all out on their own to we had a performance enhancement team around them, which was way cool. We had our automation team, we had the Hamilton guys on site, and we had gold standard technology. So we really did a complete metamorphosis from old technology into the future stuff. And it was really a great journey.
Great. Yeah, that's
Was it hard to get adoption from folks who are used to TCANs to now working with totally different systems?
Yeah, extremely, because you guys would know probably better than anyone. Pecans are a little easier to program. You don't have to be deep into coding, where the Hamilton requires a little more elbow grease. And they didn't trust the Hamilton equipment when it came in until we showed them the CVs. We did a lot of method development on both pieces of technology. And when we could show them that the CVs were tighter, that was enough to get them over the hump. But it was emotional. I mean, it was an emotional thing. You don't quite understand researchers well until you understand the emotion of this is my baby. This was my shiny toy, and you're gonna flip this on me. But sir, that's spot on. We saw a lot of that.
Yep. Yeah, you got to get it over the hump, as they say, for confidence and adoption with your users. But once you do, the word gets around, right? I imagine that you didn't get a lot of pushback after that.
I would have lunch with them a lot of times, or coffee in the morning, just to see how things were going. Where were they struggling? What were those gaps? And it wasn't just okay, the equipment's there, you guys go have a nice day. It was like, no, let's sit down with you in the mornings at lunch. Let's walk through where you are, what your gaps are. And maybe if we work a little harder with you with automation, with the Hamilton guys, if it was liquid handling, we could do some quick little tweaks that were difference makers. But man, once the word got out, there was no stopping it. It really was a cultural transformation like I've never seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I could feel the guidance even when I first met Ryan and came out to Lilly for the first time. I could feel the sense of guidance that his internal customers had, with working with somebody like him to guide the automation journey in a way that's going to be, as you said, part of the strategy. But even at the ground level, right, understanding the internal customer's problem and listening to what their challenges are.
Yeah, I mean, and Mike, you were involved in this too, but this was a complete jump shift for our health, safety, and environmental team.
Oh yes, that was an interesting conversation. Yes,
and they were like, we've never seen this before. What are these things? What do they do? How do they work? And it wasn't just the research team, right? I mean, the health and safety team had never seen technology like this, and they had no training in it. So there was a journey there, right, Mike?
Yep. Yeah. Just in the robotic space, which all these things have some element of being a robot to them, right? I mean, the Hamiltons, the instruments, anything that moves, anything that can move and potentially hurt you. You have to look at those individual things. I mean, a pipette tip is a pipette tip, maybe plastic, but it still hurts. And a robot is probably the least, at least the robots I'm used to working with. It's the least of the issues. However, it's the big red light to a lot of folks. They hear robot, they're like, "Whoa, hold on a second. What kind of collaborative are you talking about here?" And that was really great, going up there. And I think we had, it had to be more than 20 people by the time we added up online, plus who was in the room.
Yeah.
As part of that discussion. And that was for me personally, a lot of fun to present on that level with all the material we had and just basically use my whole 25 years of robot experience, because I started in the stuff you definitely don't want to be in the same room with. And now or at least in the same cage, right? And then now I work with a robot where I can, my pinky finger getting jammed in the joint, I don't even, you don't even notice it, right? It's not even, it's no big deal, but it's like a whole different world. And I could understand, though, a health and safety person's perspective, because yeah, in general, the robots you see on TV are usually slapping cars together. They're not moving 500-gram microcytor plates. And it's just, fortunately, I've been able to be part of that process where we're making robots that really hadn't been made prior to, 2008, 2009, right? It wasn't really a thing before that. And bringing it online at Lilly was cool.
Yeah, I mean, just getting them to understand what collaborative meant was so important, because at first they were like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, that's right.
And
what does collaborative mean? What do you mean collaborative?
You're like, no, touch it. It'll stop. Do it.
You hang out together. What do you do? Study at the library together? What's collaborative?
Drink beers.
Well, one of the biggest issues we faced on the health and safety was because we had gone to a lot of liquid handlers from just a few. But when you think about that, people aren't always thinking clearly, or may not completely be trained or understand, but it wasn't a great idea to stick your head inside of the liquid handler while it was operating and grabbing things and pulling plates. But yeah, we had to get through that little paradigm too, because the researchers didn't quite understand it, and our health and safety people had never seen that before.
Well, hey, it's a learning process, and it takes time, and I know we exchanged a lot of information as part of that too. Fortunately, in my case, we had a lot of data generated on how much force these things apply, because those are things people can understand. OSHA has a lot of things around how much force is allowed, if something contacts a person, right? There's speaking that language. We also had to learn as a vendor to speak the language of health and safety.
Well, and at the time, we didn't even realize that it was so early on for us that, oh gosh, there's an ANSI standard for some of this. There's actually assessments that you have to do, and it's not just necessarily with just the collaborative arm, right? It's the full system. And so that was another part of our journey. And then, do we do this in-house? Do we outsource it? What do we do? Who do we use? And so, Mike, you brought a lot of great things to us to really dial that in.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears a little bit to scaling things, spending not just hundreds of thousands, but millions. Do you have any insight on why companies waste millions on labs that don't scale? Is it just not having the end in mind, or what's your insight on that?
Yeah, it starts really with our journey. We started out where we didn't necessarily know what we own. We didn't know how old it was. We didn't know how much it had been serviced, and we didn't know how much we used it. All right. So those are 4 pretty important things to know. So how can you scale when you don't even know the foundational things? So we went on a journey to get the foundational part figured out. what do we have, how old it is, how much is it used, where is it in life cycle. And then once we started to understand that, and we got throughput data from the researchers around, well, I do this assay in oncology this often, and maybe in the neurocrine group this often, and we started to get the data, we started to figure out, oh my God, this would be a complete system. The oncology guys will come and use it. The neurology guys will use it. The endocrine guys, they need it too. And that's where these open access labs became so powerful, or these setups that we had. We literally had a librarian check in with automation where the research in. And there was your librarian who would check your samples in and then press the button and do the research, right? And so instead of the researchers having to figure this all out on their own, and then they would get their data.
That's awesome.
We started, the scaling, Mike, was huge because we never understood it. Everybody was so siloed at the bench that how would you scale when you've got 500 laboratories and researchers and you don't know anything?
Yeah.
Well, we started to know, it was like, this group has doing this type of an assay, this group's doing that. And then when we were able to multi-thread and start things on the Hamilton systems and be able to bring different things in and just put them on the system and let it figure the scheduling out, it was like, okay, this is another game changer. And so we actually had people at the technician level and sometimes at the engineering level that understood the technology and the research. And we would have check-in services where they could just come in and bring their samples prepared, ready to go. Boom, put it on the technology, let it run through its hoops, send you the data, and then go from there. And again, really, do you want 500 laboratories and 4,000 people kind of autonomously doing that, or do you want to create narrow spots in the funnel? And then you understand the scaling, right?
Kind of created your own little internal CRO, like you had your own little research with areas of expertise that were consolidated a bit for others to utilize.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way, but you're right, because essentially the way I viewed it is let's create these narrow spots in the funnel. And then once we did that, we started to get a lot of extra learning because then others would come to us and have these what ifs. Well, Steve, we have this situation. Well, what if? And that was like, it would go from that to we would sit down with all of the functional and therapeutic areas within Lilly and say, we're thinking about this system. We need your data and how much you do these things and how often you do these things. Maybe there's another system here another automated system that we need to build out. And once we started to get that data, and it was like, whoa. And some of those systems have actually won awards now outside of Lilly. The systems that we built, I was just talking to Ryan, who's now who was in our automation team and leading that. But one of the systems that he and I worked on before we both left has now won several awards. And it took 13 hours with our PBMCs that we were running assays a day, siloed, for a researcher to walk around a laboratory on individual pieces of siloed equipment and maybe manual equipment. And the journey for that was so cool because we had a guy from QIAGEN come in and I was sitting through his presentation about his one little siloed piece of equipment. And I left because I was like, there's something missing here. And I went and grabbed Ryan. And I brought him back in to see the presentation. And I said, I think there's an opportunity here. Well, almost every group was doing something around PBMCs as an example. And then we built a system that literally was a game changer. Instead of 13 hours with individual researchers, it went from you checked your samples in, walked away, and by the end of the day, you had all of your research data. And not like 30, 40, 50 researchers doing this individually. And so from a scaling standpoint, that was an amazing win. The researchers' jaws hit the ground. They were like, oh my God, I can just press the button and walk away, and then the rest of my day is free to do other important things that I need to be doing. And it was like, yeah. And some of them actually would come in just to watch the equipment for a little bit because they thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually is peripheral blood mononuclear cell. And what you guys were probably doing was isolation, which is a big process that takes time.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that the white blood cell counts, sometimes you could literally look at a bag when it would come in and know if it had enough white blood cells in it just by the color.
Right.
By the color. So, here you're looking at these bags of blood and you're like, I don't know if there's enough white blood cells in there to make a run with that. So it was like up front, we brought technology in to know if it was even going to be good. Because a lot of times they would run the research through, and then it was like the gotcha moment was, oh my God, it never had enough white blood cells in it to do the work.
And you spend all this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So we kind of transitioned from that. We were even buying the blood banks technology to test the number of white blood cells in it before it showed up because there was so many bags of it that just didn't have the count we needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool that you could do that in-house, right? In a lot of cases, right? Just collecting blood from employees.
Yeah, well, when you have 15,000
company.
people, when you had 5,000 people, you probably had enough to make it happen. We tried it. We thought about trying it in La Jolla, where I was at the biotech center with 400 people. Wasn't enough.
Please line up on the left hand side to donate blood.
I definitely got the feeling for the size of Lilly and the number of employees by taking that walking tour with Ryan to go look at pretty much every automation. Anything that was like they thought we're thinking about putting a robot on or already had a robot on it. We got to see it that day in the whole, throughout the whole campus. I think my Apple Watch was like, you got your 12,000 steps today, because that thing is strung out through. It's just tunnels and above ground, and we went everywhere to get to all these different locations. Actually, I was going to ask Elizabeth, do you find that where a system that you've installed becomes kind of a conversation piece that just sort of, propagates throughout the company where it's at, and one person tells another person, is like, oh, hey, go check out this machine. Do you find that as well for your
definitely
software?
Multiple locations, yes. And
Yeah.
there are systems that are running multiple assays as well, like Steve was mentioning before. So it does serve purpose for multiple groups in the company as well. So that's one of the things that we specialize the most is in bringing the capabilities of having multiple pieces of equipment and then running different assays as well, depending on what the group needs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember just visiting. I was at a site in Boston. I remember it was something that you had a Genera installation on it, and somebody from, I don't know, I think it was Mass Spec or something like that, happened to walk by and was like, hey, what's this? When do we get this? This big robot arm and an Echo, at that time, a lab site Echo. And then they're like, whoa, nanoliters, what? Yeah. And
yeah, but I think what the takeaway, and it's so important here, is that having that internal automation expertise makes a huge difference. And that's what I notice when you have an internal group that can understand the automation as well as the science. It transforms the whole experience and the success as well. Because when you have somebody to educate, train, and pinpoint like things that we were talking before about safety, even identify these things before they get the installation on site, so things go smoothly. And it's sad to see right now that a lot of these automation groups have been dissolved. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and they rely a lot on the vendor as well. So which is something that the vendor needs to be aware and provide that training, the support that the customer will need, and understand as well where do they come from, if they have previously have experience with the automation or the equipment, or if you have to be there kind of holding their hand and helping them through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. So it was so cool because Lilly has really pivoted. So literally in our manufacturing teams, when I first started, they had little to no automation. And then it went from that to they kept coming over, seeing what we had done and the technology that we'd brought in. And now their new manufacturing facilities, they have full automation teams. And most everything they're going to that future state. It used to be in manufacturing, it was years and years behind because the GMP regulations, you just wanted to lock it down and you're done, right? But the new facilities that Lilly is constructing took advantage of all the learning that we had in early phase research, and they've integrated a lot of that. And it's so cool because if you could imagine, when you move something out of early phase research into phase trials, literally when we pivoted to all the new technology that we've been talking about here, the automation, they were 20 to 30 years behind us. So literally to scale, back to Mike's point, to get it back up into 20 liters or whatever we were going to do in the testing, it might take 6 months to move it from research early phase into clinical trials, right? Or into the phase one. So you'd literally have to dumb everything back down and then have to retool everything to even be able to get the candidate selection stuff working on the old technology, because they weren't even using, they were using single mode readers. And it was like, we were using biotech stuff, multi-mode readers, like super high-end ferrostars, lasers, whatever. Not when you walked into these areas, right? And literally you would have to basically take everything that you'd built up, and it essentially wasn't very transferable.
Yeah, I got you. Which actually leads me to kind of looking at some of the current hot topics in laboratory automation, things that are coming up more and more in customer vendor discussion when they're thinking about procuring something or having somebody build something for them, or internally, right? That could be internal or external. But these concepts of lean, generative AI, sustainable design. What are your thoughts on what those can actually deliver right now? I mean, where those are having an impact?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I know that you had Nick on from Potato AI.
Yeah, it was a great discussion.
And I've already, as we were talking before we started, linked him up with Biosero. We sat in a room because one of the gaps is it takes a long time to build these methods. And it's not only the methods, but it's optimizing that method, right? And so that method optimization, where Nick's able to come in with his AI and then build the method without a whole lot of Python coding or anything like that. And then it's like, boom. And it may be 80, 90% of where you need to get it, but that's a huge time savings. And then you optimize from there and dial it in. I'm really bullish on what's going to happen, hopefully, with Potato AI and Biosero, because that could be, maybe it's a slight exaggeration, but I don't think so. I think it could be a game changer.
Yeah. I mean, if you get those two kinds of companies working together and they're going after the same thing, because they both got a different advantage, I think, with their customer relationship. Biosero or integrators in general are seeing the rubber meet the road, right? They're part of that process and getting things moving, and they know the roadblocks and challenges in data and execution. Then you've got Nick over at Potato AI. Yeah, that was a really fun discussion we had with them. It was really exciting to see what they're doing to try to make things go faster. Right on. So, on that note of and I think, because I think that is a topic, you're actively mentoring and guiding companies and getting involved and connected with companies where you can share your knowledge. I mean, what is your focus now? Is it on that advising and mentoring side of things?
I'm kind of in a transition. Honestly, I think my focus is to the future. It's like, and this would maybe speak to all of your hearts, but how many of these kids coming out of school today, as an example, are prepared to walk into a biotech setting to be ready to contribute? And it could be automation. It could be any of those things at the bench. So one of the things I'm going to be working on, hopefully, is with a company called Open Biopharma, is developing talent that is able to maybe build be applications engineers, build, systems out, whether they take jobs at Agilent could be Biosero, could be Thermo, it doesn't really matter. We want to prepare them for those jobs specifically where we can build curriculums that are fit for purpose, that these kids are ready to hit the ground when they are looking at these careers. Because I don't know, I'd be interested in your opinions. Where do you think the colleges and university curriculums are in getting people ready to contribute out of the box when they get out there in your world?
There's
Sura,
not many.
Elizabeth?
I think we heard at SLAS in Europe last year, there was a conversation around that. And I think there's one university in Europe that has a lab automation career, but there's not many options out there. So it's something that the industry needs really.
Yeah, and I think we can build that. And so I'm kind of going to be working on, hopefully with Open Biopharma, if things work out there, it's an opportunity to do just that. I want, instead of like any of these companies needing to do all this years of internal training, why don't we do it at the university and college level? And then build our curriculums function specific for these careers, and then have them dialed in enough. And the other thing is that they'll get internships with these companies, and the companies, they'll be able to take a hard look at, is this a fit, right? And we're gonna, I'm hoping, hit the target with developing top talent for whichever way they want to go. It could even be health, safety, and environmental. It could be lab management. It could be automation engineers at the bench. It could be building apps. All of these disciplines I don't see at the university level, Elizabeth, and I think you spoke to this, no one's really getting that granular. It's too high level.
Yeah, no, and last time we were at the ELRIC in Vancouver, ELRIC Canada meeting, there were a lot of students and they were asking those questions, like what path do I take if I get into this industry? And they have been reaching out to me, and it's really like unfortunate that there's no program that we can refer them to and say, go and here you will actually get the proper training. But it's more like, these are the different areas that you can specialize. And there are so many universities in Canada that are actually, looking into getting into automation as well. There was a program in a college here in Ontario that got canceled because I don't know what was exactly the cause, if they didn't have enough people or the resources. I don't know exactly what happened, but there was a program before.
Yeah, and boy, I have a passion for that, and it's part of the Pay It Forward program now in my life. And so the Pay It Forward program is going to be to actually do that. And I think if things work out, I mean, I don't have anything in particular worked out quite yet. I'll be talking with Open Biopharma coming up, but I built a whole mesh network around building this out and working directly with vendor companies. And shoot, I may come to you, Mike, and say, help me to look at what you would like to see as we build out a curriculum around Brooks robotics technology, and what are the skill sets that you would want to see these kids to have, and how would we get that dialed in and function specific to them, that we've really built somebody that is ready to contribute day one when they graduate.
Yeah, no, all the experiences I hear in this industry for folks that are actually in companies getting the job done, deploying this stuff, and the skill sets that they've developed as part of doing that, I see a huge disconnect between that and the academia, in terms of the programs, what they have. Just, if I'm having a conversation with Sura for 5 minutes about things she's deployed in the field, I guarantee you, I'll have a list longer of things that are not being covered in academic, right? It's coding, all the things that you have to deal with to actually get these things to talk to each other, and get work done. All that stuff, there's a tremendous amount of tacit knowledge that just is not getting covered. And you hit it on the head as far as figuring out what that gap is and doing it. I mean, the robot is one piece of that, but if you know how to code Python and some, I've worked with kind of that sequential, move it through the system, even a pipetter, right? A pipetter, you have to move the plate here, do something, move the plate here, just within that space. That's a great experience, right? And that's got to be you, but you've got to give the person the responsibility to do that from start to finish, like we did in our project labs in engineering school, right? They're like, no, we know you don't have experience, but you need to make that car move via electricity. Okay. Yeah.
No,
So
But we've
if
talked about
this,
that too on the show, right?
yeah.
Like everyone, there's no school for being an automation engineer. Everyone kind of learns it as they come into being.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but no, seriously, my passion is now becoming, I see the gap, right? I think all of us on this call see the gap, or on this podcast. Let's go fill it. Let's go make this happen. Let's develop these kids that are ready to go day one, that haven't just gotten some general thing in college. No, no, no. Let's go right after it. The other one that I want to go after, that I was actually working on, and I won't mention the company, but one of the great problems within anyone is downtime with technology, right? So what do? Well, my piece of equipment's broken. Oh, then you make a call, and then you wait and wait for them to show up. Might be weeks before they can come in and look at it. Well, that's downtime you don't want to have. And it could be part of an integrated process or system that when that's down, everything else is down. So I think there's a real play, and this is another thing that I want to work on, is augmented reality or virtual reality. What if you could put on a pair of, it could be HoloLens glasses, or any kind of reality glasses. Let's say it's a piece of Agilent technology. You're at the bench. You're now called in, working with a technician on their end to triage and troubleshoot this right there on the spot. You figure out what's wrong and what to do. And instead of them coming in day one and saying, oh, I got to figure out what's wrong, well, they already know. They showed up with the parts and they've got everything that they need. All the diagnostics are figured out. Everything is known at that point. So they're ready to fix your piece of technology instead of, oh, now that we figured it out, we're going to leave again, and then we'll come back when we get that. And so I started working on pilots of this, basically augmented reality, where you could just call in, put your glasses on, they could see the technology and guide you through exactly what you needed to figure out. We started calculating downtime at Lilly. It was ugly. That's time you never can recover. And let's just say that the patent process is not exact when you decide to look at a biologic or a molecule, and it's like, yep, I think I'm going to put that one in the game. That's time you can never buy back. I mean, that's things that you want to get to market. And more importantly, this could be life-changing or life-saving drugs that people absolutely need. So we took downtime seriously. Before, we didn't even have that metric. But when you think about downtime, I see a future, and this is kind of a visionary approach. There's no reason we couldn't do it today, that it could even be with your iPhone. You could do it with your iPhone. It doesn't need to be a HoloLens. But if you could work with a technician remotely to triage this, instead of them waiting months or days or weeks or whatever it takes for them to show up, because a lot of this technology, they don't have somebody around the street that can come in and work on it, right? So that's another aspect of this.
Now there are multiple companies that provide services for equipment that, not necessarily, especially if you are not under warranty, I would say, because if you have warranty, you have to reach out to the vendor. But if you have these older pieces of equipment, there are very reliable companies out there that can service and help you out. So that's another thing that it's important, that you get those right connections and have that backup plan as well, and know that that exists.
Yeah, we had a lot of equipment that we had third-party vendors that could come in. Wasn't the OEMs that could service, right? But usually when I was going to third-party vendors, I had the head-scratching part around, well, why do we still have that here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some of this equipment that the technology, that the fundamentals are just as good today as, or back then as they are today, or it gets the job done. But then you have this other issue of, well, yeah, but it uses a data connection we don't want to use anymore. It's RS-232, or it's some software limitation. It only works with software that works on operating system that Microsoft has obsoleted. I find that, is often the bigger lifetime killer for equipment than the actual device itself. It's like, yeah, this mass spec can still take a great measurement, but good luck getting it out.
I don't know that any of you are old enough to know this, but I am. What if I told you we still had technology that the only way it would operate was with a floppy disk?
Wow. Yeah.
I love that you think we're 25, but I know what a floppy disk is.
You do.
We were just
You
talking
guys
about
look
the
much.
Apple
You guys
IIe
look much
computers.
younger than that.
Yeah.
We still had technology that would only operate with floppy in the lab.
They didn't like that sound. And then it would just repeatedly do the same thing. You're like, oh, that floppy's gone. Oh, boy.
Well, yeah. Well, and then it was like the conundrum of, okay, I'm hearing that noise, but is it the floppy or is it the floppy disk drive?
Yeah.
We actually had a boneyard of floppy disk drives that we had to keep in the back closet when one would go out. Yeah, that was the other reduction program. Is we had a lot of boneyards of technology that I didn't even know existed. It was like, to Mike's point, there was like a lot of nooks, crannies, and crevices within Lilly, and it was like, I wonder what's in this room, right? And then you'd walk in and it was like,
whoa.
oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is sad because that's a lot of capital in a storage closet. You know what I mean? Like those things really cost a lot of money at the time.
Oh, huge. So when we started to use, I'll call it usage technology, where we could get the usage on what we owned, we literally were able to take hundreds of millions of dollars out of the labs because the usage rates were so low. Right. So once we started to understand how much we use things, and it was simple to get that data, actually. It was nothing more than a wall wart that you would put on a wall and measure conductivity. And you knew if it was either operating or not. So once you got the conductivity data, it was like, well, wait a minute. This piece of technology, no one's used it in months. And the conversation with the researchers was always around, oh, Steve, I use that every day. I use that every day.
Like,
Watt
really?
meter says otherwise, but unless you use it in a very low power mode.
Well, they went to the analogy, and this was always a great one. It was like, but Steve, that's my car. I own my car. And it was like, yeah, but you don't drive it very much.
You could just have Groot give the answer. I am Groot.
Yes, Groot.
What'd you say? I am Groot. I am Groot. That's always going to be my answer. I have seen some equipment do amazingly well in its later days, and a lot of times, though, it's just people get used to dealing with things they really don't need to deal with anymore and just get rid of it and move on and get something modern in there. And I think that, again, this can, centralizing a bit of the resources makes that decision process easier as long as your users are trusting what that centralized group is saying, about what to choose. And, I was at a pharma company back in 2014, and I remember when I walked in the door, he says, look, you're going to see 2 types of liquid handlers in here. 2. That's it. No matter what corner of this facility, I've gotten rid of this, that, all this stuff. And we have 2 because we can do everything we do with 2. And I only need to maintain 2 vendor relationships. And I thought that was his opener. He's like, so as a robot vendor, you want to be the one. Or one of the 2. Better to be just the one, right?
Did you mean to rhyme?
I was like, this is, yeah. No, I did
everything
not.
we do, we do too.
Everything we do too. Oh, that's a short, I bet. Yeah. But that was one of the funniest openers I've ever had going into a client. He's like, I'm like, I love it. That's a great way to do it. Well, good, Steve. It's been a blast. It has been an absolute blast talking with you, and we are coming to our now world famous pick of the week. And
were you warned?
I think we
did. We tell you?
We warned you about pick of the week. I think, right?
I think you did. Yes,
we did. Yeah. But, it's optional. Picks of the week are always optional. But
you are in this high-tech room that your son has, though. There must be something.
I am, but yeah, I do have a pick of the week and maybe a pick of the life, actually.
Oh, that's prolific. Epic.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a learning moment. It was a lessons learned. So I'm a double black belt. I've got a Lean Six Sigma black belt and a regular black belt. I was assigned a team as an example of rock stars, and we were going to go fix something, right? So it was like I got the creme de la creme. What I didn't realize is my rock stars were all Mick Jagger. Yeah. So I had 6 Mick Jaggers. I had no one to play the drums. I had no one to play the bass. I had no lead and rhythm guitars, but I had 6 Mick Jaggers on
Just
my
all
project. Yep.
vocals.
There's a book, and you may have heard of Patrick Lencioni before. He's written The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams, but he's got a new book. It's The Working Genius. And The Working Genius was you don't want 6 Mick Jaggers. You need a team. What would have happened to the New England Patriots if Tom Brady would have been the center on the team instead of the quarterback? How well do you think that would have gone? So The Working Genius is all about how do you outfit your teams? And there's 6 disciplines in the team, right? So you need a wanderer. You need someone that's able to think about things up front. You need an ideation person that can take what the wanderer's doing and form an idea around it, because usually the wanderer isn't that person. But the problem with the idea guy or the idea person or whatever is they may not be very good at discernment. They think their idea is pretty amazing, but then there's no discernment. So you need discerners to get around that, to understand the idea and kind of rough it up a little bit and get it shaped. Because ideas are great, but they require a little bit of massaging and sculpting to get them dialed in. Then you need your helpers, which are the people that kind of move it along. They're the people that are kind of the execution people that drive it. And then you've got your galvanizer. And these people that galvanize are kind of cheering it on and kind of moving it on and galvanizing everybody to get the helpers working. But the last part is usually where things can really fall apart. Man, you got to have that gritty, tenacious person to get it to the finish line. And Patrick's book's all about that. And The Working Genius, when I started to do testing on people and I figured out where they fit on my teams, complete transformation. We had every one of those covered and our team started to click. So you'll never learn that in a black belt course, by the way. You just get a team. You get assigned people. And it wasn't until I got my 6 Mick Jaggers that I noticed that this isn't working. And then when we started to understand it, it was like, this now works because now I've got my team outfitted with all the right skill sets and thought process to be able to get this from start to finish because I've got every discipline and every skill set covered, right? Does that make sense?
100%.
So that's kind of my, I think it's a lifer. It's not just one thing, but that's another thing I want to give back with the university level is like when you're forming teams, there's always something when you talk about it, there's forming, then you get to storming where everybody was kind of like, you form it and then, here comes the drama, here comes the storming part. And then you get to norming where it settles down and you're starting to get things put together and then you perform. I want to skip the storming part and get right to norming and performing. So when we started to do that with our teams, it mattered.
I want to read that book now.
And that all rhymes too.
We're on a rhyming rampage today.
We are on a rhyming rampage today. That's fantastic, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm with you as far as the paying it forward and giving back, paying it forward. I think paying it forward is a better way to look at it. In that, the older I get and the more I keep working, the more teaching is fun. And sharing the knowledge and things like that. So. Yeah, if there's things, it would be great to do things together, all of us pushing that forward and being part of something. Carry that torch that, the average college grad is not getting for the resources they need into an industry that is only going to grow. It's only going to get bigger and higher demand. Any other picks of the week? Anyone? Anybody? Anybody? I
need to buy more things.
You can always pull from the vault. Today, mine is going to be one from the vault. This is I've had my career in robotics is started in industrial robots, big, things for car industry and, razor blades, high throughput manufacturing, just making stuff. And one thing though that has always been my friend, in terms of just throughout robotics, and I got to appreciate this when I was in the surgical robotic space. I was responsible for getting the needles that we used for our little surgical robot onto the robot for the day of our trial surgeries, it was hair transplant. And anyway, this device was given to me by the mechanical engineering team, and I use this thing all the time, right? It's a little loop. It's from AGFA, a German optics company, and it's just a little 8x loop that you can put flat on something, and it's your focus distance is exactly this length. Although you can have it kind of tilted up, like I would put a needle under it and just have a look. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that I have never been able to find this thing to purchase. I wish I could, because I don't want to lose, if I lose this one, or, to suggest there are other ones out there, but this particular one, I haven't been able to find. But I mean, it is handy, because when you look at gripper fingers and somebody's like questioning, they're not really getting a good purchase on the plate, or, they've done their own design. I can go, all right. There we go.
I want one of those. I usually have to take a picture and then zoom the picture in.
And exactly. And it's like, you know what? When you see it with your own eye, and you've got a good optic that gives you a really, you could put this on your Retina, super ultra mega Retina iPhone screen. You can still see even the gaps between the pixels at 8x.
Wow.
Even though it looks like perfect, paint. When you look at the screen these days, they're so good.
All right, whoever gave Mike that, please send me one.
I know, Cliff, wherever you are.
So, Mike, does that travel with you everywhere?
Yeah, if I know I'm going to be looking at some, I might have a chance of looking at some stuff, because gripper fingers are probably the most common thing I'll have a look at in detail, or something. Even on the board, we were looking at what's going on with this board, and we figured out the power amplifier actually is blown, but it took this to be able to see the blown trace, on the board. You never know. But I only take it when I think I'm going to need it, because I'm like, I'm going to lose this thing. Old school pick of the week. Yeah.
My pick of the week is puppies. Get some puppies. They make you feel much better about life. I love my puppy.
And not just one. Puppy. Notice the plural.
It will depend.
Here we do 2, not 1 puppy.
I go all out in everything I do, guys.
I got 5 puppies if you want one. So yeah.
Oh, I have 3 dogs and a cat in total, so I don't think I can bring any more animals in the house without my daughter killing me.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it for this episode of Helical Brew. Thank you again, Steve, for coming on. And for our listeners and viewers out there, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I can give you my direct email right now. It's you can reach out to they can reach out to me on LinkedIn through my profile, but LinkedIn's a great one. Direct email's fine with me too, actually. So if they want to reach out, that's perfectly acceptable. LinkedIn's quite an ecosystem. I use it quite a bit.
It works.
Yeah, it seriously does. And done meetings over it. It's not half bad.
Yeah, it's a phone book. You can, that's right. They have LinkedIn video connect. You can do a schedule.
I've never
done
that.
When I type, if you type in your messages, something about a meeting or a time, they'll be like, schedule a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to, I think after COVID, everybody was like, we need to put a little Zoom in our product.
No, if they wanted you to stay on the platform, they'd let our YouTube video links just play in the platform instead of take people off. You know what I mean? They're really missing an opportunity.
I know. We deal with this thing, Steve, where you got to do clicking off the platform. And it's like, if you want to they want to be the location of your video. And it's like, sorry, no, YouTube's going to be the video location.
Which is fine by me, because then you could like and subscribe.
That's right. And that is the next topic, is how to connect with us at Helical Brew. We love to hear your ideas about the show. Any suggestions, comments, please email helicalbrew@gmail.com. And of course, you can always watch us on youtube.com/@ Helical Brew, or just go to www.helicalbrew.com. That works too. So for today, this episode of Helical Brew is brewed.
Thank you for joining us on the Helical Brew. We're glad to have you with us. For more episodes, please visit our website at helicalbrew.com. That's helicalbrew.com.